Why do I use the word of non-self? Most of the time when you read about anatta, they talk about not self. There's a lot of essays been written about no anatta, that says that anatta is not no self, but not self. It seems a bit confusing, but I hope by the end of the talk you get a sense of what anatta is. Now, when I use the word non-self, I'm talking about an experience, not a state. The experience that of a spaciousness and awareness of things that are around you, and there's no preoccupation with the center of a being, that we see things out there as they are, existing as it is, without any relation to the person who is seeing. Relationship comes when there is the grasping of what's out there. There is, soon as there is the idea of an object that's out there existing, then the subject will automatically appear, because we have been conditioned to thinking that there is an object, there must be a subject. When there is an experience, there must be an experiencer. How did that all come about? Well, it came about through our use of language. Most languages, you have a subject and object. There's an I, there's something which I want. There's an I, and there's a you. So we always, in our daily thinking, in our daily use of the language, it is somebody interacting with something or with someone. That's embedded in our language, in our thinking. And that constant conditioning, that's me, that's you, you're doing something for me, I'm doing something for you, I'm acquiring this, I'm giving up this. Well, that's just through our use of language, we're conditioned to the subject and object. And when we first come to cross Buddhism, and we hear that things arises and passes away, Dharma arises and passes away, they're just the experience, right? It's a new view, it's a new concept, a new view. The view that there is I, an experiencer, and there's the experience, that's also a view. So that this view, we have been conditioned with this view that becomes a very strong intrinsic belief of a person doing something. So what the Buddha teaches is we have to really look at this person called I, this subject. Is there really something that we have attached to this I. It's better in our language to understand that. But is there really something that I, that a person that executes something, that does something? And the first thing the Buddha says is that, well, if there is a person who's in control, who's interacting, can he not decide that he wants to have great feelings all the time? Right? Okay? So is that possible? Or he wants to have no unnecessary spurious thoughts. You want to have good thoughts all the time, pleasant thoughts. Is that possible? There's actually a person who's in control. You want to have good, happy consciousness, no depression, to lack any states of mind that we like. So he poses this question. If there is somebody, there's a person who's in control, then it must be possible to be able to select what type of feelings, what type of consciousness, what type of thoughts you want, what types of perception. And we realize that it's not possible. And it's not possible because Buddha says things occur according to dependent origination. Because there's contact, feeling arises. Because there's feeling, craving arises. Depending on craving, clinging arises. Depending on clinging, there's becoming. And it's dependent on what occurs previous. That's why it's called dependent origination. So contact is very important. Contact feeling arises. And the feeling that arises due to contact is condition, or past condition. And that's how the way works. That's how things arises within us. So the Buddha says, well, a person can be divided into materiality and non-materiality, nama, rupa, nama. In non-materiality, we can subdivide it into feelings, vedana, sanya, perception, sankhara, thinking, vijnana, consciousness. Because those are the four prominent things that we encounter in our daily life: perception, feeling, thinking, consciousness. And that's the body. So we asked to investigate if there is a cell, does it reside in the body, in the feelings, in perception, in thinking, or in consciousness? So that's what we are asked to see, we are asked to investigate, find out actually the belief that there is this experience is true or not. The path of non-self is not practiced by by trying to figure out what no self is. That's where a lot of beginners go wrong. I went through the same mistake as well when I first started practicing. No self, I tried to figure what self. Yeah, there isn't anything there. What it should be like, it should be something like this, like that. Yeah. So you've got an idea what no self is, each of us, no self, anatta. What happens is that when we do that, the mind creates something for us. That's it. So the mind creates the self, which is no self, an entity called no self. It's great, we have this no self. We have this entity, we don't realize that, but we actually have this entity. And this entity is impervious to things. It is cold, it's not compassionate, can be cruel, it's a way of defending against all these impulses that's coming towards them. I have no self, nothing can happen to me. Right? If somebody else has no self, nothing can happen to them. Like kind of wrong thinking. So when we practice the path of liberation through anatta, not self, we have to go through the path looking at what self is. In the daily life, we know what self is, Yeah, I have this self-hate, I have this self-abuse, I have this selfishness, everything related to self. You know very well, So we start from there. Start our idea that, well, there is this self-hate, Why is that there's this self-hate or this self-abuse? So we start trying to establish this sense of self first. And from then we start to break down, see what's the core. Right? And we have self-hate because there's something that we don't like that's within us. There's this aversion. This aversion comes through a feeling, and this feeling is conditioned. And if we investigate, we will find out that somewhere in the past we've been conditioned. Been conditioned. Conditioning could be from our parents, from our friends. Oh, you're not good enough. You can be better. You can do better. We absorb this idea. You're not good enough. That's probably true. So we say, because you're given the reason, you can do better, you can do it this way, that way, whatever. That's all conditioning. All conditioning. Conditioning comes from another person's perspective, another person's idea of you, your friend's idea of you, your parents' idea of you. That's a perception. Right? So they build a self of what you should be like. So we inherit that perception of what we should be like. In the case of body, society demands a perception that, we should look like that, slim, tall, whatever, But that's the conditioning. That's conditioning. So we have all this conditioning within us. And we believe in this conditioning. Because usually it comes from our parents, society, peers, magazines. Everybody says so. So we got to break through all this conditioning, all this perception. Well, that is a perception of self, which causes suffering. In practice of the path of non-self, there are actually two types of practices you have to do. First is to reduce your own suffering. If you do not reduce your own suffering, your mind is not composed enough. Your mind is not composed enough, you cannot develop concentration. When I mean by concentration, I usually mean concentration and mindfulness, meditation, samatha. So we got to reduce this suffering that we have, that's going on in our mind. That's the path. You just reduce this suffering, just enough to have some measure of composure. Then we can develop concentration. And how do we reduce this suffering? We reduce this suffering through insight, by seeing the things that we believe, conditioning. Am I really like that? He says so, but he doesn't think so. So you got to examine. And we come to know that it's just perception, people's perception. Their perception depends on their previous conditioning. They read about books, they like, their conditioning, what they like. They go to a bookstore, they don't buy books they don't like, they go to buy the books that they like. Yeah, the conditioning, right? So people's conception of earth is their conditioning. So we must know that. Once we know that, then we come to believe less about the views of the self that they have created of themselves. So that's the first part of the practice. Well, to practice, to have this kind of insight, you still need a little bit of concentration. So the path of practice requires both concentration and insight. Why concentration? Well, if you want to see an object and it is like that, you can't see what it is. So you need concentration to hold on to it. Then you can magnify it, right? And see what it is. Seeing what it is, right? You still don't know what it is. Say, well, yes, it's something like this. Yeah, it's probably envy, right? But then you have to use insight to penetrate it. And the insight practice is to see the characteristic of things that arises. Specific characteristics. And what are those characteristics? The characteristics of impermanence, that they don't last. Right? That they come and they stay a bit and then they pass away. And then they arise again. And then from this seeing of impermanence, we find that, well, it is suffering, nothing lasts. Things keeps breaking down, decay, it doesn't last. So the first step is seeing the impermanent, seeing the dissatisfaction with things, because they don't last. When things are impermanent and they rise and then they pass us away, we can't actually attribute an essence to the thing, whatever it is, because we can't hold it for that long. Even though, let's say that we have this feeling that there's this self coming, this subject that comes up because it grabs onto an object. And after the grasping is gone, the subject disappears. So you get, wow, at that time there's a self. Yeah, it's true, there's a self. There's a rising of the self. Then it's gone. Next time there's another arising of the self. And then it's gone. Feeling of the self. So there is an arising of the self and then a decay of the self. But because of each arising, the self is different, depending on the object that's grasped. So we cannot say, well, there is a self. It is that self. There's so many selves, and they rise and they pass us away. So it doesn't make sense to say, that there is a permanent self. It doesn't make sense to give any power to this self, because the self is dependent on the thing you grasp. If you're grasping at something nice, this certain self comes up. If you grasp on something that you dislike, a different self arises. Self with hate, self with craving, self with delusion. Right? So which one are you? Right? So you are, if you like, you can say you are, depending on the object that you're grasping. And if you're not grasping onto an object, no self arises. So that's the first part of the practice, to understand that what we feel is dependent on what we are grasping at. How we are at a particular moment is dependent on contact, just on contact and on conditioning. So we come to realize, see this truth, to actually see it. I have this feeling, what's the contact, what's the object of the contact? Color purple. Why did I like the color purple? Trace back to these, a version of purple. Whatever. So when you are successful in doing that, then you come to the actual practice in itself. And the actual practice is looking at the 5 khandhas, 5 groups that make up a person. Body, feelings, perception, thinking and consciousness. then we have to actually investigate through seeing that all these five khandhas are impermanent. Because they're impermanent, it is not possible for a self to exist in one of these five khandhas. And if we say that, well, self doesn't live in feeling, but the self feels the feeling. And then you ask the question, well, if the self feels, can the self change the feeling? And say, no, it's because it depends on contact. So if the self is there and it can't do anything, everything is dependent on contact, the self is just like plastic, it does nothing. So what good is that self for? Right? It's a non-entity, it couldn't do anything. It's something we created, a plastic. Right? So you have to investigate this, learn to investigate, to see that because of impermanence, it cannot have a permanent self. There is the other aspect of investigation, where when we eventually come to see that things are impermanent and doesn't have any essence in this, we feel disenchanted with it. There's nothing in it. It rises and then it disappears. You know, we have this, but soon it's going to decay. Whatever we eat changes. Whatever we have, it lasts, but up to a period of time. So the path of non-self is through investigating to see where there actually is something in the five khandhas. That's the crux of the practice, where we investigate to see things like self-hate, feelings and everything. That's just to reduce the suffering. So we got to do the both practice in parallel. And when do we get a breakthrough? How far do we have to go to make a breakthrough? We do not have to go very far to make a breakthrough. We have to understand nama and rupa just enough for the heart to see that it's not possible for self to live in the body, nor is it possible to live in the mind. And once that happens, you are able to let go. You are able to see the body and mind as two different khandhas, two different things. They can be related, but they are different. So you see them clearly as being different. Further along the practice, you start differentiating between the non-materiality of the mind, the nama. You start to see feeling, differentiate between feeling, perception, thinking, and consciousness, seeing each of them clearly. The next thing to work is with feeling. It's attachment to pleasant feeling, aversion to unpleasant feeling. And feelings we know just last that long. That's it. Cannot maintain it. Whether it's good feeling, bad feeling, it's dependent on the contact with the object. We maintain the feeling by remaining constantly in contact with the object to create that feeling. That's all we do. Memory, bad memories. We recycle that. Good memories, we recycle that. And with that feeling, we have a kind of attachment, a satisfaction, of feeling bad. It sounds strange, but there's something sweet, about this feeling bad that keeps us going. It recurs. So when we know that feelings, either good or bad, is impermanent, doesn't last, it's only maintained through our persistent contact with the object. It's very artificial. Then we learn not to do that. We learn to let go. It's in the past. We let go. It's a memory. Just a memory. And in that memory, we have this person that's been mistreated. The self whom we identify with. We come to see, well, that is just a memory. That person is not this person. Alright? So whatever that person has been mistreated in the past, it's in the past. It's nothing to do with this person now who's here. Who's doing something else, who can be doing something else. Can go skiing, scuba diving. Right? Have a great meal. It doesn't have to recycle that. So we have to know that the memories of the person we identify with, the self, not real, just mere memory. But that's kind of satisfaction. Maybe it's revenge, a sweetness. You get a little bit of justice. Want to play it out. So we have to learn to see this perception, which is also memory, perception of into memory. And then stop the sankhara, thinking, papancha, proliferation of thinking. That's how we progress. By looking at sound. Feelings, perception, then when it comes to consciousness, So when we progress, as we look at the self that's created within this khanda and not believe in it and see it for what it is, we make further breakthrough until we come to a fine stage. After we have seen that there is no self in all the five khandhas, we still have this sense of self, a sense of presence, a reference point that even though there isn't a sense of self in any of the five khandhas that I know about, there's still this me that's present here, and there's this environment, you know. That's a very fine point of self. Self as a reference point. I can quote one of the famous horseman called Ajahn Mahabua. He says, when you see a room is empty, the room is not actually empty until you leave the room. Because when you see the room is empty, there's still a reference point from which the room is seen as empty. Alright? So total emptiness is when you have a room, and the room is truly empty. So if we talk in terms of emptiness, it's that in the first stage of breakthrough, you come to realize that there is emptiness. What we mean by that is that all things are empty of self. There's no essence in it because it rises, passes away. There's no abiding person or even abiding essence. And on the second stage, we see that clearly. It is empty. Right? This is empty, everything's empty, we see it clearly. On the third stage, everything is empty, and then we abide in this emptiness. There's still the abiding of the emptiness. And then the last state, a true state of not self, anatta. Right? That state, there is only emptiness. Well, I leave you all to figure out that out, the last stage. And what is this path of non-self to self? This path of non-self to true self is actually the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta that we are going to chant at the end of this evening. I think I'll read a bit of excerpts of the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta before chanting. I think what we're going to do is change the schedule a bit. I want to take some questions for some time, and then after that we'll do a meditation, and then we do a bit of reading of a translation of the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. The Anatta Lakkhana Sutta is the characteristic of not self. Well, in my talk, I'm so used to using no self when I should be using not self. But it actually, but so long as you understand the difference between non-self is an experience that you learn together as you go through the path. Even though you still make a breakthrough, you still have this sense of self. Yeah, that's me in the memory, let's say self in memory, self in intent. So that you go through a path of non-self. And you actually reach the path of not self. Then every trace of any sense of self disappears. Total emptiness. And no self is a superego. It's something you do not want to create. So you never try to figure out what no self. Whatever you figure out, whatever you conceptualize, that's my meaning. And if you want it, the mind will give it to you. And you have it, you're in big trouble. Because you have to you have something extra to do. You throw that away before you start on the path again. So it's not something like that. Yeah. The thing is, in your daily life, when you sense strong sense of saying, why is he doing this to me? Then you try to change your view. Change your view. He does that because of his perception. Nothing to do with you. Every one of you have a perception of who I am, what I am, how am I, and that's your perception. You want something concrete. And your perception is your condition. Nothing to do with you. I said, well, it must be this way. I like the way he sits. No, I don't like the way he sits. I like the way he talks. No, I don't like the way he sounds. Perception, like and dislike. The thing with likes and dislike, preferences, is that it can turn into aversion or attachment. So when we go through the process, the path we go through is when we see things as they are, which is they're impermanent, don't last, they'll be satisfactory, won't have any essence, then we are disenchanted with it. Nibbida, that's the Pali word. After we go through a state of disenchantment, we become dispassionate with it. That's viraga, dispassion. Only then, when we become dispassionate with it, can we have vimutti, we are liberated from it. Then we go through another cycle, looking through another kanda, feeling, become disenchanted with it, nibbida, become dispassionate with it, feelings, high, low, fed up with it. Become dispassionate, oh yeah, this is another thing. So become dispassionate feeling, oh yeah, this is a nice feeling, oh yeah, this is another bad thing. Become dispassionate with it. Then vimutti, we are liberated from feeling. So we see feeling is, yes, that's a nice feeling, that's our content. Yes, that's a bad feeling, that's my condition. That's it. Some people actually like the cold. People coming from Southeast Asia, they like air conditioning, they like being in air conditioning. So when they come in, whoa, great! And now it's really cold. I remember there was one time when I was back in Malaysia. My mother's place, and I was staying in air conditioning. And then when I opened the door in the morning to get out, I first thought is, who put the heater on? You know, so it's my condition because I've been living here for so long. That when it's warm, then somebody put on the heater. It's expensive to put on the heater. So in the morning when I open the door, I say, who put the heater on? That's the first thought. No, it's natural. That's my condition. It's interesting. So when we go through this enchantment, this passion, liberation, and the last point, last bit, is called the knowledge of the destruction of the asava, the knowledge of the destruction of all the defilement. I think that the Pali word is asava kayena. So we go through all this bit until the last step, and we know that we destroy all